What's going on YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. Today I've got another video on my 2019 Mac Pro. It has been over 3 years since I've bought this computer, and I just wanted to do another yearly update on it like I have in the past. I did a 2-year update, so I figured, you know what, it's time, let's do it. So I bought this thing back in May of 2020, I believe it was on May 13th, and it was definitely the most expensive computer that I've ever purchased, and probably will hold that record for eternity. But I really wanted it. I ended up selling my 16-inch MacBook Pro and kind of transitioning back to a desktop, which is not something I've historically done for quite a long time. I used a laptop as the main for quite a while, but when this thing came out, I instantly fell in love with it and decided to pick it up. So here we are 3 years later. I'm going to do a little update. So I'm going to start this exactly how I would with the last video and whatnot, by giving you guys a quick exterior tour. We'll take a look inside it again, and then I'll go ahead and boot it up, and that'll pretty much be it. Alright guys, let's go ahead and take a look around this thing. So, of course, when this thing came out, I just thought it was the most beautifully made and well-engineered desktop computer that Apple's ever made. And finally, this replaced the 2013 trash can Mac Pro, which was disliked by many. So I really fell in love with it. I mean, the fact that it has, a stainless steel polished frame and such an easy way to get in and out of the machine right here. And just also this lattice pattern on the front and back, which is really good for airflow. The cooling system on this thing is really beefy. And just, it's a beautiful machine. So, as you can see, walking around, like I said in the last video, this thing just kind of sits in my room. So, haven't really sustained any damage, which is nice. I'm going to the back, I cleaned it out, I believe, shortly after I made the last video, so it's not too dirty. And as you can see here, most of my PCI cards, or my PCI slots, still remain vacant, but I did end up adding a USB 3.1 card from Sonnet, and also the OWC PCI SSD card there as well. And then of course we just have the Mac Pro I/O card. Something I never really liked about this machine when it first came out is that they only give you the I/O card here with 2 USB ports, and I thought that was kind of crappy. And then of course 2 Thunderbolts here and an audio jack, but thankfully, with this thing's industry standard, PCI slots and whatnot, it was really easy to just install a USB card, so that was cool. Going down here, we have my GPU, which we'll get to, and then of course the power supply, which I believe is like 1200 watts or 1100, I can't remember, so that's nice. And it also has the dual 10 gigabit Ethernet built into it, which I of course use. So there you have it. I think from here we'll go ahead and pop open the case and we'll talk about some hardware, because that has changed a little bit. Alright guys, so here we are, unsheathed, and something that I of course touched on in my review, or spent quite a lot of time on, was the interior design of this, and I still really love this. This thing is so expandable, and you can pretty much get at every component in this machine super easily. Not to mention, of course, those giant blower fans up front. The machine here really provide a lot of airflow. They're not too dirty, actually. I think they are a little bit cleaner than the last time I did this video, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, I always loved the design of this thing, especially since if we go up here to the top here, you can see that the power button is connected via pogo pins to the exterior case. And I mean, these USB-C ports are machined on the outside. So, I mean, the level of quality that this thing is built with is pretty amazing. But without further ado, let's go ahead and talk about some hardware stuff. Now, I ended up just doing one significant upgrade to this machine since the last time that you guys saw it, and that was the CPU. So, of course, I ordered this thing back in 2020. It was just the base model, so I had the 8-core Intel Xeon W3223 in there. And, like I said, that was the base CPU. And I always intended to upgrade it, but I was waiting for prices to drop. And so I want to say, well, it was sometime in between a year ago and now. I can't really remember, but I think it was a couple of months after I made the last video. I went on eBay and I ended up purchasing the 12-core Intel CPU, the Xeon W3235, and I can't remember exactly what I paid for it, but it wasn't more than a few $100. And of course, you know, that gets me 4 more cores, namely, but some other changes that we also have with this CPU is the base frequency is a little bit lower at 3.3 gigahertz instead of 3.5. But it does have 19.25 megabytes of cache instead of 16.5, so that's a small bump there. We've got a slightly higher TDP at 180 versus 160 with the old CPU, and really one of the biggest factors that drove me to get it was it has the faster memory controller. So the memory runs at 2933 megahertz instead of 2666. All of the 2019 Mac Pros came with the faster 2933 megahertz RAM, but the base model CPU could only run it at 2666. So, you know, that was none of those things are really like super impactful, but I have actually noticed that my render times with Final Cut Pro and such are a little bit faster. And, you know, it wasn't a super expensive upgrade being a used CPU, so not a big deal there, but that was some other thing that I did. And then, you know, I've had this thing for quite a while. I upgraded the GPU shortly after I got the machine, but we still have the AMD Radeon Pro W5700X MPX module there. Quite a bit better than the crappy 580X GPU that the base model came with, so that thing should carry me for quite a while. And then if we look up there, we still do have, like I mentioned before, the USB card and my OWC PCI card, the Excelsior PCI card there, and it does have a Samsung 980 Pro, I believe, in there, because I don't think I mentioned this in the last video, but at some point, the older 860 Evo I think I had in there before, I think it was, or maybe it was a 980 Evo, I can't really remember, but it died, and so I was having some really strange issues with my boot camp partition, and it turns out after scanning it with Drive DX, that's what it was. It was a dying SSD. So that was kind of crappy. But other than that, there's really no changes in here. And, you know, I still really appreciate the wonderful design of this computer. I mean, it is just as beautiful on the inside as it is on the outside. And especially that PCI latch is really, really satisfying. But there we have it. That's pretty much the interior tour. So I think from here, I'm going to go ahead and put the case back on. I'll throw it back in the setup, and we'll boot it up. Alright, it's back in the setup here. Still exactly the same layout and everything. Still have my little APC UPS down there for when the power goes out, because obviously a desktop does not have a battery. But yeah, the setup is pretty similar otherwise. I'm going to go ahead and power it on, and then I'll continue. Always takes a little bit for it to start up after you unplug the power supply. But I'm actually going to punch in just a little bit here. There we are. Something you may notice, and I'll actually pull the camera off the tripod for this. I actually got a new keyboard for the setup. So I had a Ducky 1 for a while, and it was an excellent keyboard, and I really liked it. It's actually back over there right now. I'm actually giving it to my friend Chris, but it had a couple of dead LEDs for the keyboard, or the key backlighting, and it was just getting a little worn out and kind of gross. So I decided to get a new keyboard while I was at a Micro Center vacationing with my friends. This is a SteelSeries Apex 5, and it has their own in-house brand mechanical switches, but they feel and sound really similar to the MX Blues that I'm used to, so I was pretty happy about that. It is a really nice feeling keyboard, and it also has this interesting effect when you push a key, it actually turns white for a split second. That's something you could set up in the configuration for this thing. And it also has a little dot matrix style screen there that you can actually go through settings and stuff on, which I think you just push that for. And that didn't do anything. That is interesting. Well, anyways, this works as a volume control here, and then, you know, this screen will show you, like, if your caps lock is on like that, and you can also customize this logo to really whatever you want, so that's pretty cool. But anyways, I decided to just pick that up. Nice little keyboard, and yeah, there we have it. So anyways, back to the video here. Let me go ahead and put my stuff back on, and then Okay, so let's go ahead and take an updated look at the overview of the machine here. I'm actually going to go into the expanded view here. So there we have it. So as you can see now, like I mentioned before, we now have the 12-core Xeon, so that's pretty nice. We still got the W5700X there, and we've got 48 gigs of DDR4 RAM. Like I said, running at 2933, and then of course it still has the PCI configurator thing here, so that's cool. But it is running macOS Ventura now. Of course, that came with the previous year, and you know, macOS Sonoma is coming out soon, so I will probably be upgrading to that. But yeah, and then we still have my Dell gaming displays here. They're 165 hertz, so that's really nice. That was a nice upgrade that I did last year. But there you have it. That's pretty much it. There's really nothing interesting that I can show you without, you know, disclosing personal information or anything. But really, like I've mentioned before in previous videos, I use this thing as my personal home computer, which may be, you know, kind of stupid to some people, but this is really the last. This is the last of its kind that Apple will make. They will never make another desktop computer that is this industry standard, upgradable, and modular ever again. And that has been proven right by the recent release of the updated Mac Pro, which has the same M2 Ultra chip and pretty much identical hardware to the Mac Studio that they put in this case. And unfortunately, all of the upgradability has gone with it, and this is something I kind of expected given the nature of Apple's silicon, you know, and its integrated system on a chip nature, but it was still very disappointing. And not to mention, you know, this new Mac Pro with the M2 is $3,000 more expensive than the Mac Studio, and there's pretty much no benefit for like 99% of people. I know there's probably, you know, a small subset of people out there that use PCI cards for very specialized equipment and whatnot, for maybe music production or something like that, but really nobody should buy that thing, and I think it's really disappointing that they removed every ounce of, like I said, upgradability and modularity with it. And so that is really the reason that I'm not regretting purchasing this one at all, even though I know my days are going to be numbered due to the fact that, you know, Apple has given up on Intel machines. But, you know, I hope I at least get 2 or 3 more years of software support out of it, and then I can probably limp it along a little bit longer than that, you know, because, I mean, it doesn't stop working as soon as it drops support. So anyways, that was a little 3-year update on my 2019 Mac Pro here. Still absolutely love this thing. It's been a great computer for me. I haven't really noticed any sort of significant performance or degradation or slowdowns or anything like that. It's been really great, so I'm just going to keep using it as long as I can. And then, of course, I have my 14-inch MacBook Pro for portable use outside the house. So anyways, there you go, guys. That is a pretty complete video on my 2019 Mac Pro, I feel. So I'd like to thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you all in the next video. Take it easy, guys. See ya.